Hello and welcome to the first of what will hopefully be many Radio Times Doctor Who Series 11 previews, which I'm calling Doctor Hugh, because I am Hugh Fullerton.
And I'm Sarah Doran, and I fundamentally object to calling this podcast preview Doctor Hugh.
Well, this is why I spoke first, to get it out there. And this week we're going to start with the main woman herself, Jodie Whittaker. We're going to just be chatting a bit about what we can expect from the new Doctor and what we've seen so far.
Yes, we are. I'm a massive Jodie Whittaker fan. Wouldn't say I'm as big a Doctor Who fan as I am a Jodie Whittaker fan. I was in love with Jodie long before I even knew she could possibly be the Doctor, because I loved her in Broadchurch, absolutely loved her in St. Trinian's, to go right the way back. And I actually can remember where I was the moment she was revealed to be the new Doctor. I think you can too, can't you?
Yes, I think we were in the same room.
We were.
Preparing for the reveal. We weren't sure who it was going to be. We had a few ideas. We were sort of prepping all these. Could it be this actor? Could it be this actor? We were pretty much entirely wrong, I think.
I think, yeah, exactly. I remember coming back into work on the Monday after the big reveal and saying, we'd no idea it was going to be Jodie. And then a couple of our colleagues say, well, it was all over the Sunday newspapers. And it's like, yeah, but I don't think anybody saw her coming. It was so left of field. Just didn't expect it at all. And
also there have been so many names kicked out by papers and online in the sort of weeks preceding. Chris Marshall was the favourite, which seems crazy to think now.
So, I remember that, actually. That went on for months. Everybody thought it was going to be Chris Marshall.
They really did. So so when Jodie's name was kicked around, I sort of had her in, Phoebe Waller-Bridge was in there for a while.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Olivia Colman. I kind of had her in the same realm as I don't know if she'd actually want to do it. But clearly she does. I mean, she seems to be taking to it from what we've seen.
One thing I do remember, though, about the day of that reveal, sorry to take it back a tiny bit, was everybody was watching, of course, the Wimbledon men's final, because this big reveal was coming at the end of it. It just felt like it would never come. I was like, Sue Barker, I love you. I do enjoy the tennis, but please, can we get to it? But we were thoroughly entertained with the fact that David Tennant was in the audience.
He was, wasn't he? He was watching. And we now know that he already knew.
Yeah, he did. And I remember a lot of people joking, is it 10 again? Could it be?
That would have been a twist if David Tennant had just strode from the stands, been like, just kidding, I'm back.
Of course, yeah, he was one of the first people to know it was Jodie Whittaker, wasn't he?
I think he was, yeah. I mean, so Chris Chibnall's talked about this quite recently. Chris Chibnall's the new Doctor Who showrunner, and he sort of revealed how they shot that reveal. And the big thing was they shot it very secretively. They kind of all had fake names and all this stuff. And then right after they did that, they were like, well, who are we going to call? So they called Peter Capaldi, they called David Tennant, they called Matt Smith. And then they all ended up kind of ringing her and giving her some advice. Although apparently David Tennant sort of recounted the phone call from Jodie. Apparently she was just sort of like hyperventilating and so excited. And he was just sort of like, you'll be great. You'll be fine.
Because this is a big departure for her. This is kind of her first. I know she did Attack the Block, didn't she, a couple of years ago? But
and Black Mirror.
And Black Mirror. But this is her first lead kind of
totally
sci-fi role. And like you said, she seems to be stepping into it with gusto.
100%. I mean, it's hard to say because obviously we haven't seen the episodes yet, but we've seen some footage. We've seen her talking about the character. And for like you've mentioned earlier, she's best known for things like Broadchurch and things like that. And basically, she sort of said herself that she plays a lot of crying mums.
I did. I read that interview. It's quite funny because she's played a lot of those kind of characters, but she's played such a variety of characters.
Totally. Also, we should say she's a tremendous actor.
Well, wasn't she kind of universally critically acclaimed for Venus, that film she did really, really early on?
Was that with Peter O'Toole?
Yeah, it was with Peter O'Toole. I haven't seen it, but I've heard so many good things about it.
Yeah, it's funny. But then she did loads of roles like that, really critically acclaimed, quite serious roles in some ways. And now she's playing this sort of madcap figure. But the funny thing is, a lot of people have said that's what she's like in real life, so it totally works. She's got this big sense of humour. And not to kind of blow my own trumpet.
Have you possibly met her, Hugh? Did you possibly write the Radio Times cover feature about Jodie?
I did indeed. And the thing is, she is it's hard because we haven't seen any episodes, as I say, but from what I've seen in the footage, she is quite like her Doctor, if that makes sense. She's obviously using her natural accent, which we haven't seen her do that often before. She's from Yorkshire, and the new Doctor's got that accent. But also she's just really animated. In person, she uses loads of hand gestures. She sort of always is laughing and she's cracking jokes and doing silly voices. And I get the impression that's kind of the vibe they're going with her Doctor. And I've heard from some other journalists who interviewed Matt Smith when he was first cast that it was the same with him. Like, he was in person kind of like how his doctor was. Like, it informed the part. So, it's going to be a real departure for her, but not a massive departure for the show in some ways. Obviously, we haven't even said really that she's the first female doctor.
Of course, yeah. This was the big thing at the time. And I'm kind of almost pleased that while it's still noted, and obviously
it's not the main thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, as a girl, I remember at the time when she made the announcement and she was like saying, please don't be scared. I think I wrote like a really scathing opinion piece going, she shouldn't have to say don't be scared. This shouldn't even be an issue. This is great. It's so exciting. I think it was on CNN talking about it, and I got bumped for Donald Trump.
We've all been there.
Donald Trump had done something, so CNN had to cut away from me. How terrible to not give me more airtime.
Well, all Jodie through you.
Yeah. And I kind of like now that we're at a point where for the majority of those who had been whining about it, and I will say they were a minority, they just seem to have been drowned out at this stage. People are just really excited because we saw in your feature, we've had some first look images at the new series. We're getting kind of tasters left, right and centre in terms of trailers and teasers. And then you've got Jodie going to Comic-Con and absolutely smashing it on that, was it the catwalk?
Yeah, for the 13th Doctor costume you
Yeah,
can buy.
when she came out and she was like, men can wear it, women can wear it. You know, it's kind of gender neutral, really.
Yeah, I mean, a few of my friends have sort of sent that on to me. And I think the thing you can take from it is that she's already really good at the kind of ambassadorial nature of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Where it's a different sort of show. It's a show where you are suddenly like a children's hero, basically. Do you know what I mean? Like, kids love you, you're signing autographs, you kind of represent something. And because, as we've said, she's the first female version of the character, she represents something more, and to a whole sort of, swathe of...
Swathe is a good word.
A swathe of the population who maybe wouldn't have, had that experience with any doctors before. But yeah, no, she seems to really be taking to it. I'm not really sure what we can say about what her actual doctor will be like. I mean, we've sort of seen some clips, as we said, and they've sort of talked a bit about it. They've said she's sort of mile a minute, she's always talking, she's really sparky, she's full of energy, she's a bit like Matt Smith's doctor, I think they've said. But obviously we won't know until whenever it airs. I think they've announced the air date yet. I think it's in autumn sometime.
It's roughly in the autumn, isn't it?
It's been roughly in the autumn for quite a while.
It's going to be quite a big deal for her, I think, when this airs as well, because we're seeing so much build-up. We're seeing so much hype. That's a lot of pressure. Do you think she's going to live up to it?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, there's an argument that no one could live up to it, like no matter what they did, if the expectations are high enough. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think what I've seen, I'm really excited. I think the show's going to be really fresh. I think it's going to be such a departure. I'm actually kind of glad there's been a bit of a gap since the last series of Peter Capaldi, just because it kind of lets people kind of have a bit of a breather and then kind of come back to the series.
He's given his blessing as well. He thinks she's going to be amazing.
Yeah, totally. He's a class act.
Like, not that she needs anyone's blessing, but it's always good when you've got the people.
It would be worrying if the other Doctor Who actors were slagging you off. They'd be like, oh no, not her.
Which nobody has
Nobody has done
Can we just say that?
Yeah.
We're just like throwing that out there as a figurative thing.
As an imaginative exercise.
You've met her co-stars as well. They seem quite excited about her, didn't they?
Yes. They do. It's quite a really fun set. I mean, I wasn't there for too long, but they seem to really have a good sort of vibe, really fun banter, really good. What's the word I'm looking for? Kind of
rapport.
Rapport. That's it. They had a really good rapport, all of them, and they all seem to get on really well. And it's hard to say how that will kind of play off in the show. I think Mandip Gill, who plays one of the new TARDIS team friend companion people, basically said her character really looks up to Jodie's Doctor, and you wonder whether that's kind of because she's a woman as well.
Yeah, and you wonder whether that's kind of intentional in a sense, because, one of the things that people got really excited about is the thing that we haven't touched on very much. We did touch on briefly there again, was that, she is the first female Doctor. And I can't help but wonder if, like, Mandip's character, obviously we don't know much about her, but from what you've said there of, like, she really looks up to the Doctor, is almost kind of like supposed to be somewhat emblematic of like the young women and the young girls who can now like look up to her. Maybe it's something to say like, no, it's cool. You can look up to this Doctor as well. I think, like, don't get me wrong, I think young girls have always looked up to the Doctor anyway. There've been people who've been complete, but like to have a woman, it just does make a difference. It's
just there's a difference between being able to empathise with a character and seeing someone who's like you on screen. Do you know what I mean? It makes the gap a bit shorter for people to kind of see themselves. And like the thing is, obviously there are one or two people who said, oh, it's a shame to lose a male hero who's like not punchy and who's not, really action and who's quite cerebral. But I'm like, they're not going away. You've still got 12 other doctors, 13 other doctors, whatever, who all those episodes still exist. Your kids can still watch those and get that. But, now the girls have it too. And to be fair, it's not like there's any shortage of kind of male role models on TV for boys. So, yeah, I'm really excited.
Going back, though, to the team, and you mentioned they get on so well, I have been absolutely loving watching Bradley Walsh and Jodie Whittaker kind of doing their thing on social media and at awards ceremonies, like at the BAFTAs. They were just brilliant. They just seemed like such a good double act. And I know we're going to talk about the TARDIS team in more detail in a later kind of episode of this show. But there is something quite special about it, I think.
I think so. I hope and I feel that it's hard to fake that kind of chemistry, if that makes sense. I like to think it seemed like they all got on really well, and I hope that that's true, if that makes sense, because I feel like that will translate into a really good energy in the show. Like with David Tennant and Billie Piper, say, you always could tell they got on really well off set, like they were really good mates, and that definitely fed into the show. Like that was kind of, people see it as like a bit of a golden age now, those years, 2006, 2007 sort of time. So yeah, it seems like they all really get on. They're all like hanging out together outside of the show and going to like, I think Jodie and Mandip go to like the races together.
Yeah, I saw they were at the I think they were at the Polo. They were like filmed,
that's right.
or not filmed, I should say. They probably were filmed, but they were photographed there together as well. I don't know. I was thinking the other day, and I was like, somebody said to me, "What's the one thing I should watch that Jodie Whittaker has done before I sit down to watch Doctor Who?" I think it's actually quite hard to pick this because for different audiences it's very different things, because Broadchurch deals with really dark themes, especially in series 3. I would say is not always it's just not suitable for younger viewers.
I think Broadchurch, if you were going to watch it, the very first episode is quite good.
Yeah, it's really good
she runs onto the beach and finds out her son's life. But yeah, it doesn't. It's also by the same writer, Chris Chibnall, which helps. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's hard to think that translates very well to Doctor Who, because that's such a dark and kind of visceral role that she's playing there, and this is streets away from that one way or another. Like, not that it's not as challenging or as deep or whatever, but it's just much more upbeat, and it's much more, it's a sci-fi adventure show. It's hard to think, because what we were saying, it's a bit of a departure for her. It's hard to think of anything she's done before that will kind of
give us a hint or a clue.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, she's not even used her own accent that often.
I know. But if you have to pick like a brilliant Jodie Whittaker performance that you would suggest somebody should watch, what would you go for?
That's a really good question. I do like Broadchurch. The film Journeyman, which came out recently, is pretty good actually, because that's quite recent. That's what's his name? Paddy Considine film?
Yeah, Paddy Considine.
About a boxer, and she plays his wife. And that's quite interesting because she has to deal with some pretty harrowing stuff, but she's also got a really good sense of humour in that. So that's maybe not a bad one. And also it's quite recent, so it kind of lends into itself. And her hair looks the same, so that might help.
I quite like her in St. Trinian's. I'm not going to lie. I know
is she the receptionist?
She's the receptionist. So she's not got this massive role or anything, but there's kind of the quirkiness, and she uses the accent as well in that. And I think it's a little bit more of her kind of playing comedy. So I can't help wonder if there's going to be could we see? I mean, it's impossible. You can never say you can see shades of that character really, because you don't copy anything again. But I think it'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, that's a deep cut, but I like that. I think you're probably right. I think maybe you'd have to assemble a sort of Frankenstein's monster of little bits of all her roles
of all of Jodie's
to kind
roles.
of get something close to it. But then there are no characters on TV like the Doctor. That's the point. That's part of the reason Doctor Who is as popular and as fun as it is that it is a bit unique. And she's going to make it unique again in a different way, bringing some of the things we know and love about her. But also the show's going to, inform what she does just as much. So yeah, it's all going to be very exciting, which I've said about 60 times in this episode, but I am excited.
We think it is, but of course we want to know what everybody else thinks as well. So do you think Jodie's going to live up to the hype? What are you most excited about? Do you have a favourite Jodie Whittaker role? This episode is all about celebrating her, so let's continue this celebration of Jodie in the comments below. Don't hesitate to leave us a message. Let us know what you're most excited about in season 11, which we know is coming in the autumn. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a minute of Doctor Who news, reviews, updates and exclusives from Dr. Hugh, as the RadioTimes.com sci-fi editor likes to be known.
And also you can check out plenty more Doctor Who coverage on RadioTimes.com itself, including lots of cool Series 11 hints from me and others on the site.
You're always doing your analysis, aren't you?
I'm always doing my Who analysis. I can't get away.
If you need to break down a trailer into 50 million clues, hints and tips, just ask Hugh Fullerton.
Yeah, you don't even need to ask me. I've already done it before you've turned around.
Until our next episode, when we will, of course, be talking about the entire TARDIS team, as they are now known. I've been Sarah.
I've been Hugh.
And thanks for listening.